Good evening, everyone. Well, we have a pretty good crowd tonight. I want to thank Rex for letting me have the pulpit tonight. I think he's more excited than I am, but I'm still grateful that I get to speak tonight. Jacob did a great job reading that particular scripture, and it's a very important scripture to those of us that work with the mission organization called Torch Missions. That's basically our statement of faith, and it's kind of our goal, the thing that we want to do. You know, we want to be found faithful, and the part that I noticed that ties in with what Rex talked about this morning is the part that said every nation will be called to judgment. Every nation. Rex said that, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. And so, with my dazzling language skills, I can speak English and I can speak Southern. But I was just thinking, whether you speak German or Italian or French or Spanish or Slovak or Russian or, they're all going to have to give an account. They all have to give an account someday. And the idea of the mission work really, really, truly comes into play. It's a sad moment in American lives that we actually have missionaries from other countries coming to minister to us now. We have missionaries from South Africa that are being trained to come to the United States to preach. Used to be the other way around. And I'm afraid that our country is getting a little bit lackadaisical. I really do. I think it's just part of our culture now. It happened to Europe years ago. And I used to think, how could that happen? How could they have these tremendous cathedrals and in all these great places? And you read about these places in Scripture. I mean, you read all about it. And yet, Europe has gone to the wayside. And we've marched mightily with our missionaries over to Europe and to other places to work. And so that kind of leads us into the Torch Missions thing. It's always a scary thing when a couple of youth ministers get together. It really is, especially when they're getting together to do something, to plan something. And that's literally how Torch Missions began back in 1988. It was just two youth ministers that got together one day. One was from Texas and one was from Tennessee. And they were good friends, and they're like, hey, we ought to get our youth groups together and do a trip. And they picked, in 1988, they picked Honduras. Now, if you know anything about history, 1988 is not a good time to be going to Central America. They are full-out civil war down there, and they went. And in 1991, they asked me if I would go. And I told them that they had lost their mind. I said, I'm a social studies teacher. We talk about this kind of stuff in class. You're not going to get me to Honduras. There's no way. And they just kept after me and after me and after me and after me. And I finally, I gave in. I gave in. And that was in 1991, and I've been going ever since. This will be my 28th year, I believe. 28 years. Can't speak a lick of Spanish. No hablar español. Logan, is that even close? Got a thumbs down, man. That's bad. Okay. I deserve that. Torch Missions. Training of redeemed Christians heaven bound. And you're probably expecting all the mission verses, Matthew 28, Mark chapter 16, and those are so incredibly relevant, but I'm not going to go there tonight. But I am going to give you a report on what we've been doing. But I wanted to pick up on something. I think Donald Ballard would appreciate this because, you know, when you dig down deep into Scripture and you look at the original meaning of words, Donald does that quite a bit. And there's a few scholars that think that there was a clerical error. The scribes made a mistake when they were writing this out. And it was supposed to say, "Go me into all the world." And they wrote the word "ye" instead. But when you put the word "me" in there, it changes that verse, doesn't it? Go me into all the world, wherever that world might be. For some of us, our world is right here. It is. It's right here. We live in a big world right here. But there are some of us that are fortunate enough to get to go into the world and to work and to try to make a difference, to be a difference maker. And that's kind of what Torch started out as. We had 2 youth groups, got together, went to Honduras, and they realized they made a difference. And those 20 people went out and found their friends and brought them in. And the next year they went back and they brought some more and they went back. And what started out with a group of 20 people, 18 teenagers and 2 adults, has turned into an organization that sends over 1,000 people a year to Central America. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. It really is. So, go ye into all the world. Let's just hope this works. I'm not usually allowed to use shiny things. Okay. And I messed up. I knew it. Let's see if there we go. So our catchphrase, taking the light into a world of darkness. The world is a dark place. We were talking about this in my civics class this week at school. And we were talking about, do you know of any places that's dangerous? And they said, "Oh yeah, Tampa." And I'm like, "Really?" And they said, "Have you ever been to Ybor City at night?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." And they said, "Don't go. It's dangerous." These are 7th graders, and they know that. There's dangerous places throughout the world, and there's dark places throughout the world. It's not a surprise that Satan is the Lord of darkness. There's no surprise there. And it's up to us to bring the light to drive the darkness away. It worked again. So the main objective of Torch Missions is evangelic and humanitarian relief efforts, primarily in Central America. But we have done work in South America. We've done work in the Caribbean. We've done work in the United States. Wherever we feel that we can make a difference, we try to make a difference. We have doctors, we have nurses, we have preachers that travel all over the place. And we take what little we can take with us, and we try to make a difference. And sometimes making a difference can be a big deal. It can be a big deal. And I don't want this to turn into any kind of political statement or political conversation, but the world, as we know it, is literally knocking on our back door. Thousands and thousands of people from all over the world are coming to the United States every day. Every day. And I've really been thinking about this a lot. If we could wake the sleeping giant and go out and do the Great Commission, all these people that are trying to come to the United States, wouldn't it be something if they were all Christians? What kind of difference would that make if they were flooding our borders with people who had been converted to Christ and they were trying to get into our country? What a difference that could possibly make. And so when we talk about going into all the world, we really need to, because all the world is coming to us. The same people that we go to minister to could very well be our next door neighbor someday. My son works down in Sarasota. He and his best friend run a paint business down there. They paint houses and buildings and stuff. and they have 50 people that work for them. 47 of them are Hispanic. 35 of them are from Honduras. My son has spent years going down to Honduras, and he's got a relationship with them like you can't believe. It's almost like a family bond relationship with his workers. They look out for each other. They protect each other. They when there's something in need, they work together. These are the same people that came from the same areas that we've worked at when we were in Honduras. We have students at Foundation that have roots in Honduras, in Costa Rica, in Peru, in Guatemala. We have students from all over the world, right here in our own backyard. And what little bit we do at FCA is taking the gospel to the whole world. Let's move on here. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about our work that we've been doing in Costa Rica and the work that we've been doing in Honduras. We're going to take a closer look at that. In case your geography is not up to speed here, I thought I'd show you a little map, give you an idea of where we're talking about. And it might give you an idea of where these caravans are coming from. The groups that are coming up to our southern borders and the distances that they have to travel to get there. Costa Rica is down near the bottom, bordering Panama. Honduras borders Guatemala, which borders Mexico, which borders the United States. We as Torch Missions, we've been working in Honduras since 1988. I've been working there since 1991. We started work in Costa Rica 8 years ago. And I've been going there for 8 years as well. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we do and what's going on down there. Our mission trips always begin the third week of June. Third week of June, those of us that are in the know, we know that Costa Rica that's our trip, Costa Rica. If you've never been to Costa Rica, a lot of people go there. It's a big vacation destination. They've really invested in their infrastructure, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And the government has done a really good job of providing good roads. They have clean water. You can drink the water right out of the faucet. But there's still the spiritual need. There's just a huge spiritual need. Presently, there's about 52 congregations of the Church of Christ that are doing really, really well in Costa Rica, and they work really closely with each other. If one church is having a retreat or whatever they're having, man, they all come. It's really kind of neat to watch. They really support each other. They really work together well. And so we decided that we wanted to go down there and kind of use some of our resources and go down there and see if there's a way that we might could even help a little bit more. And so we've tapped in with some people from Louisiana and from Texas that write Bible lessons and Bible materials, study guides, and they write it in Spanish and in English. And so we've been able to do these seminars down there where we bring the preachers in, we give them all this material that they can use to study, to use in their sermons, to use in their Bible studies. And that's just one of the many things that we've been able to do. I think I'm way ahead of myself here. Slides, who needs them? I feel like I'm trapped to this. Torch Missions, when we go anywhere, we don't just jump into water and jump out and go somewhere else, and jump out and go somewhere else, and jump out and go somewhere else. When we go in somewhere, we dedicate at least 3 years that we're going to go in there and work. because that's when you build the relationships, and that's the relationships is what's going to cause changes to take place. We may only be there for 10 or 11 days, but when you're there 3, 4, 5 years in a row, you do develop those connections and those friendships and those bonds. And the distances between us isn't that big of a deal anymore. Not with the way, with the internet and things like that. You know, we can stay in constant contact with each other. But we dedicate at least 3 years. During that time, we work with the local congregation. We work specifically with the work that the preacher would like for us to do, because they know better than we do what needs to be done and how to do it. Sometimes all we do is provide manpower. Sometimes having 25 extra people can really give a boost to a congregation of 25 or 30. When they're trying to go door knocking or when they're trying to do anything, when you can double the size of the crowd with 25 people, which is pretty standard down there. There's only a couple of congregations down there that are of any real size. Okay, let's try again. There it is. So during these last 8 years, I'll just give you a little summary real quick. We've worked in a town called Buenos Aires. We worked there for 3 years with the church there. The preacher's name was Daniel Chavez. Very small town. Very small town. We could easily canvass the whole town in a week. If you've ever had a pineapple, it probably came from Buenos Aires. The Dole, Pineapple, Chiquita, Del Monte, they own thousands of acres of pineapple down there. There's also 50,000 Native American Indians, I know that's politically incorrect, but that's what we're going to call them tonight, that live on reservations down there. And so the church in Buenos Aires, they do a lot of outreach because the natives on these reservations live in just unbelievable poverty. And we were able and we're blessed to be able to do that. I can remember just a couple years ago, I'd never experienced this before, but each of the tribes, there's 7 specific tribes, and they all have their own language. And some of them do those little clicking sound things, you know. And so I was asked to do a lesson, and I presented my lesson in English, and then the translator translated it into Spanish, and then the Spanish people translated it into all these other languages. And I had a 7-minute lesson that took almost an hour to deliver because it took that long for everybody to translate. I've never experienced that before. The whole time I'm wondering, I wonder if they're even getting this right or not. You know, sometimes you wonder, do they have the same words that we even use? But it was just a very, very interesting thing. Let me move on to the next one. Here's a picture. One of the things that Daniel really wanted to do is work with the kids. And so there were 4 or 5 public schools, and they literally just opened the doors to our group for a couple hours a day. And we went to the school to do vacation Bible schools, to do Bible lessons, teaching them how, songs, doing puppets, all kinds of stuff to work with the kids. And then, of course, the kids found out that the vacation Bible school was going on at this church in Buenos Aires. And so at night, the kids would come and get a second helping. And I could see very easily why Daniel wanted to work in the schools, because number one, they allowed us to go in. We can't even do that in the United States. Try taking a VBS team to a public school and see what happens. Actually, don't, because we know what would happen. We have freedom of religion, but really we don't sometimes. And we did the gospel meetings at night. We went door knocking. Which is a unique, those of us who are a little bit older that have done some door knocking in the past, when we were younger, probably have nightmares on some of the receptions that we got. When they would announce at church that we were going to go door knocking on Saturday, I would just cringe. Just like, oh no, those people are out there. But down in Central America, it's just not like that at all. And so our teenagers that we would take down there, they found it quite interesting and fascinating and almost fun to go door knocking, because the people were receptive and were willing to listen, were willing to talk. I have to admit, I was pretty impressed with it too, because I was like, what's the scoop with this? They obviously haven't caught on the way that we have. They're about 20 years behind us, and it's kind of refreshing in a way. But we got to do stuff like that. I know Caleb, you probably remember a little bit about that. You went 1 year. And it's totally out of our comfort zones. Most of the teenagers in here probably have never done door knocking. They may not even know exactly what that term means exactly. Because it's kind of as Donald says, it's kind of part of our dying heritage, the gospel meeting and the door knocking. Okay, so by the numbers, for the next 3 years, we worked in a barrio in the capital city of San Jose called Parral. Very, very poor neighborhood, extremely poor. No electricity, no running water, very much like Honduras. And we worked there for 3 years. And it was the same basic type of idea. We did the door knocking, the Bible studies, the service projects, the vacation Bible schools. And we worked with the preacher. His name was Christian Vargas, spoke fantastic English, came to the States, went to the Sunset School of Preaching, graduated from there, is now back in Costa Rica working. Just an awesome, awesome guy. For his graduation, there was a congregation in Alabama that supports him. And so for his graduation gift from college, they sent him to Disney for 3 days, which is, you can imagine. For us, 3 days at Disney is like, okay, that sounds okay. Somebody coming out of a third world country going to Disney for 3 days, it was everything they could ever dream of. All right, this is a picture of the church building, and we're having our gospel meeting. We do it at nighttime so the people that work have time to eat dinner and then come to the meetings. For the last 2 years, we've been working in a town called Sarchi. It's about 45 minutes out of San Jose. The first year we worked with the Church of Christ in Sarchi. Last year we worked with another congregation about 20 minutes outside called Naranjo. And this is where we really discovered the idea of bringing the preachers in for training. There's a fantastic Bible camp there called Camp Jenny Sue. It's owned and operated by a congregation out of Arkansas. And they let us use the camp for $10 a person per night. Pretty good deal. That includes the food. Food and lodging for $10 a night. And so we just invite the preachers and the Bible teachers and the leaders to the camp, and we do these seminars. And at $10 a person, we can afford to pay for them to come in. They don't have to pay a penny for the training, and we provide all this stuff for them. We've also even done some classes for the business owners, some Christian business ethics classes were taught by one of the guys that we had down there. Todd McCullough, as a matter of fact, taught one of the classes 1 year on church leadership. And he did a lesson on elders, because not a single congregation in Costa Rica has elders. Not a single one of them until last year. The church at Barva established the first set of elders that Costa Rica has ever had. And those people were part of the class that Todd taught. We also work at a school, Escuela, please forgive me here, Escuela de Sabanilla. Thumbs up, all right. These kids are actually migrants from Nicaragua. Nicaragua, you don't hear about this in the news, but Nicaragua is in the middle of a horrible civil war. And so these families fled Nicaragua to Costa Rica. They're working in the coffee plantations, and there's about 45 of these kids that go to this particular school. And so we get to work with them 5 days, vacation Bible school. We teach them, they're learning how to speak English. They have an English teacher there, so we get to practice English with them. Man, you're talking about some adorable kids. These kids are just amazing, and we've been working with them for the last couple years. I think I just talked about all this. This last year, we went to Naranjo. We worked with the church there. We did a lot of service projects in the area, and did the seminar and all the things that we just talked about. I'm going to have to speed up because I'm looking at the clock here. But you know, what they say, our bread and butter is our trip to Honduras. We've been doing it for a long time, and whenever people talk about Torch Missions, usually they will talk about the work that we've been doing in Honduras. So Shoals has been part of this Honduras mission program for the last 7 years. Steve Johnson got you guys involved, good or bad. He's the one responsible. He came to the Sunquest Youth Rally, stopped by our booth, got some information. I'm living in Tennessee at the time, working at Freed-Hardeman University, and I get this phone call from this guy named Steve Johnson, and he signed up a group to go. I was so impressed with the first group that went. Some of you maybe, I know there's some in here tonight that were in that first group. I was so incredibly impressed with the group from Shoals. I looked at my wife, I said, we need to be there. How can we do it? Well, on that trip, there was a guy named Mr. Smith. Jonathan Smith was on that trip. And he met, I got to meet him. He had this cool cowboy hat he wore, teaching kids how to play drums. Man, I really liked the guy anyway. And found out he was a principal at a Christian school. He found out I was a teacher. And next thing I know, we come down for a spring break. He gives me the tour of the school. I get a job, and here we are. And so we're here literally because of the Shoals presence in Honduras 7 years ago with Steve Johnson. It's just, I think it's a God thing. There's that cool hat I was telling you about. I didn't have a lot, I'm sorry, I went back in my phone and looked, and I just didn't have very many pictures back then, but you can see Mr. Smith, and there's Victoria, and I'm trying to, my screen's smaller than yours. Anyway, there's a bunch of people up there that are from Shoals. I see Becky Beggs and Julio, and anyway, these were some of the first ones that we met, and they made quite the impression on me. So in the last 7 years, because of Shoals Church of Christ going to Honduras, these are some of the things that they've done, or we have done. I'd like to say we have done. In the last 7 years, we have built over 100. We've put over 100 families in houses since Shoals has been going. The exact number is 122. 122 houses in the last 7 years. We've built 2 church buildings, 3 playgrounds, and we even built a couple schools. One of which was the money was provided by Sunquest. They do a special contribution each year, and their contribution was given to us, and we went down and we built a school in Tierra del Padre, which is a native Indian reservation in Honduras. In the last 7 years, we've had medical teams, Bobby and Asha and others. In the last 7 years, we've seen over 2,000 patients free of charge. We don't charge for the doctor visit. We don't charge for the medicines because we go out in places where there are no doctors, and these guys, it's not unusual for them to see 200 or 300 people a day, and they can't get enough of it. There's times we have to tell Bobby, shut it down. It's the sun's going down. We have to go home, and they're wanting to keep on going. It's just they're totally amazing. We've shipped containers down there. We've sent over $12,000 in medicines. We go to the hospitals. We go to the orphanages. We go to special needs facilities, the blind school, the school for the mentally challenged, the physically challenged. We go and we really put these guys out of their comfort zones. They're really out of their comfort zones when they first start out. But it's good for us. It's good to live outside our comfort zones every now and then. Here's one of the houses, what they look like. But in the last 2 years, just in the last 2 years, we have built 37 houses. And every one of our houses is called a dedication house. The money has been raised to honor somebody, a family member or a friend or somebody from church, which puts a lot of importance to building that house and building it correctly. We want the people to have a safe place to live. And it's neat to know that house was built because we're honoring somebody else as well. We've conducted, in the last 2 years, 10 days of medical clinics. And in just the last 2 years, they've seen over 1,000 patients. I'm telling you, these guys are amazing. By the way, Bobby, I couldn't find a single picture of your wife. What's that about? I looked. I couldn't find a single picture of Asha anywhere. But I had like 15 pictures of Bobby. Every time, he knows where the camera is. Let's just put it that way. He knows where the camera is. We've distributed enough food in the last 2 years. We've fed over 5,000 people for a week. That's Mr. Ballard sorting our ever-popular red beans. Take big bags and put them in little bags. We do with rice and all kinds of stuff. We've witnessed dozens of baptisms, including Hondurans, but even, I think, more importantly, several of our FCA students have been baptized on the trip. We had one student, a senior that graduated a couple years ago. She had gone on the trip the year before, and she came home plotting her strategy to get baptized in Honduras. That was her plan all along. She wanted to go back again, and she wanted to be baptized down there because it meant something special to her. Here's a picture of Mr. Ballard. He's about to baptize one of our students. He graduated 2 years ago. And then one of the Hondurans. Kind of an interesting baptistry, don't you think? Next time we complain about the cold water here, imagine getting dunked in a 55-gallon barrel. And interestingly enough, when the baptism is over with, they dump the water out because they believe that water's no good anymore. That water's sin water, and they just throw it out. There's no way they're going to use that water. In the last 2 years, we've had 36 different devotionals. We've led worship services at 4 different congregations. Mr. Ballard had the opportunity to preach down there. Of course, he was talking at this level, and the Hondurans were understanding at this level. The interpreter was doing an amazing job of working it down. Because, the average Honduran's education level is about 5th grade. That's as far as they can go. There's very few middle and high schools available. They're lucky to graduate from 5th grade. Mr. Ballard doesn't talk on a 5th grade level, in case you haven't met Donald. He loses me all the time at school. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So here's the upcoming trips for this summer. We're planning on our trip to Costa Rica, June 14th through the 24th. We'll be going back to Sarchi. This will be our third year. After this year, we will reevaluate what our strategy will be, if we're going to stay in that area or if we're going to try somewhere else. The Honduras trip will be June 25th through July 5th. And this year, we're even starting another ministry. We're going to be taking our first team ever to Guatemala, it should say July 5th through the 13th. We've discovered there's a big need in Guatemala. We've been contacted by preachers that are working in Guatemala. There's a preacher training school there, and they're being sent out into these remote villages. And they contacted us and said, hey, is there any chance you could come and help us? And our basic philosophy is, if what we do can help someone, we want to help. We can't do a lot, but we try to do what we can with what we have. So the plea, sign up now. Be part of a legacy who has and is making a difference. You might this, I think, was the first team. If you look closely, you'll see Aaron and I think Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith's in there. I got a little bitty picture I can't see. Maybe. Well, it doesn't work there. There's 27. I counted it up. There's 27 people from Bell Shoals in this particular photo. And I think this is the group that got it all started. And here we are 7 years later. And we're still involved. And we're still anxiously and hoping that there will be people that would like to go, maybe for the very first time. But you don't have to go. There's lots and lots and lots of ways that you can support towards missions besides going. There's just so many things. Aaron and Holly Herkelman are going to be putting out a supply list of things we're going to be collecting. Bobby's going to be whispering in people's ear about medicines and doctor stuff. I don't know what he does, but he does it. And there's just, anything from stuffed animals to toys to maybe even, if you got some extra mileage points on your credit card and you can't go, but you can buy an airline ticket for someone. There's lots and lots of ways that you can help. But hopefully, put us on your prayer list. My wife and I think we calculated it out. We're going to be gone 32 days this summer, and it looks good on paper. The mind is willing, but the body may not cooperate. I'm hoping this is going to be a really awesome summer. And then I'll finish up with a couple pictures here. On that blue building there is one of the schools that we built. I believe the Diamante Academy. This community is called Diamante, which means diamond. And we wanted the kids to really understand the importance of having the opportunity to go to school there. And basically it says the future is now at Diamante Academy. We wanted them to understand that getting an education is how you're going to improve your lives. And you can see we dress up like clowns and go to the hospitals. We make human ladders. Maybe shouldn't have shown that one. There's a picture of Bob Herkelman with a cotton candy machine up there. Danielle doing some block work with Beverly. The diamonds at the Jesus statue. It's just amazing stuff. Oh, there we go. Bigger pictures. We go to the handicapped orphanage. It's just an amazing trip. That's all I can say. It benefits the people of Honduras. They really do live in poverty. They really want to. There's many of them that are trying to get the United States to have a better life. When you can make in 1 hour at minimum wage in the United States, you can make more in 1 hour than you can work all day in Honduras. You can see why they want to come. But the majority of Hondurans are proud to be Honduran. And they want to live there, and they want to be able to make it. And groups like us coming in to help them, gives their dreams an opportunity to actually be fulfilled. Everything we do is Christ-centered. Everything we do is for the Lord. Everything we do is stationed and based around congregations and preachers that can get in there and work with the people, especially after we leave. We don't want to leave someone high and dry, as they would say, or as we would say. So that's kind of what's been going on in our part of the world. I am so incredibly thankful to Bell Shoals and the elders and the people that support us. And hopefully, maybe you might want to find out more. Margaret's got paperwork and information if you'd like to get some. She's right over here. If you'd like to find out a little bit more. And hopefully someday we'll see you in Honduras. Last time I tried to figure out how many people from Bell Shoals have been, and I really don't know. I really don't know. I was guessing around 80 people from Bell Shoals has gone. It may be even more than that. I think it's close to 25% of our congregation has participated in the trip, which I think is pretty outstanding, but there's always room for more, right? So this isn't your typical sermon, so it's certainly not your typical invitation that you would normally get. But I want to go back to my opening statements. Every nation, every knee, every tongue will confess Jesus someday. Even those of us that speak English. That includes all of us in this room right now. And if your relationship with Christ and with God, the Father, is not what it should be, or if you don't have a relationship at all yet, this is the time to think about it. I'm going to finish with a story that from a friend of mine that used to live in Sarasota. His daughter was in my youth group, and she was just dying to go on the Honduras trip. And he's like, no. And she just kept after him and after him and after him. So he finally came up to me one Sunday, and he said, listen, Katie can go to Honduras, but only if I get to go. Now, this guy's a rough, tough guy. He's not a Christian. And he's from, nothing personal, but he's from New York. And he's got that New York accent. He's got that attitude. Please don't take that wrong. I'm from Alabama. Just please don't take that wrong. And so I said, sure, Ken, absolutely. I'd love for you to go. And then the Sunday before we left, he came up to me and said, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I need to do it the right way. Let's go to the baptistry. I want to get baptized. Didn't see that coming. And it changed his life. It can change your life too. If there's anything here I go. Should have known. If there's anything we can do for you, we got an invitation song picked out. While we stand and sing, if there's anything at all, come up front and we'll be glad to help you